For dancers, sustaining a supportive relationship with food is not just critical for your physical health, but it's also going to support career longevity. The healthy dancer encompasses a 6-stage approach that does exactly this, guides dancers in building behavioral changes to support their relationships with food and maintain a healthy body image. But even for seasoned professionals, the challenge isn't only to make the behavioral changes, it's to sustain them for the long run. Today, we're uncovering the most common reasons why dancers struggle to maintain behavioral change, especially when it comes to their relationships with food and their body images, and of course, actionable tips on how you can overcome this.
I'm Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist and founder of To The Point Nutrition. A dancer's performance is a direct result of hard work and motivation. So where does food fit into this? There's a lot of myths and a ton of antiquated ideals, and I'm here to dispel those.
Hi, I'm Rachel Fine. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist working specifically with dancers in helping them to redefine what it means to be the healthy dancer. And today we're discussing exactly that, how to sustain the behavioral changes involved in redefining what it means for you to become the healthy dancer. What are the barriers to sustaining behavioral change? When dancers first reach out to me as a dietitian seeking support, the motivation is super high. Most often, it involves a strong desire to want to get away from dancer diet culture. You've heard all of those external messages. You are super confused about what to eat, when to eat, and of course, how much to eat. And you're finally ready to sift through the confusion in order to gain clarity. At that moment, dancers are likely also experiencing the negative complications of restrictive eating patterns. Injuries like stress fractures and mental burnout, these are just two common examples. For others, that desire to want to ditch or dismantle dancer diet culture comes from external messaging, like from social media or with an influx of that anti-diet rhetoric that we are often hearing about. You know, the one that often pushes that, and I quote, food freedom approach. As time progresses, however, that initial enthusiasm often wanes. And the challenge to consistently adhere to efforts in rejecting that dieting mentality grow. Habits deeply rooted in routine, especially for dancers who have dieted or restricted their intake for years. This can be especially challenging to break from. There's also 3 very specific reasons why we often see dancers struggle to sustain more supportive behaviors around their food choices. And the first are sneaky food rules. Early in the healthy dancer, we learn how to make peace with food. In doing so, we utilize a tool called unconditional permission, so that we can learn how to eat foods in a way that leaves us feeling supported, physically energized, and mentally satisfied. The goal is to strip away any conditions that you have around eating. Conditions being like, if I eat this, then I need to do this, then I need to go take an extra dance class, or I need to save up the calories for that eating experience. Those are the conditions or the strings attached that we want to move away from. But this process of eating unconditionally, it doesn't happen overnight. In fact, the longer you've experienced or lived with that restrictive dieting mentality, the more tightly you are likely holding on to those restrictive food rules. Beliefs like, I can eat this, but only in moderation. A lot of this is rooted in restriction, not permission. Another reason why dancers might struggle to sustain supportive habits around mealtimes is because they might feel stuck in what we call the honeymoon phase. So early in your journey of redefining the healthy dancer, we are often breaking restrictive food rules. This is a step-by-step or a strategic approach to reintroducing foods without guilt into your meal plans. During this time, you might feel an immeasurable amount of freedom around these foods. And this is often why a lot of clinicians will call this food freedom. Personally, I don't love the phrase. In my opinion, it can set some unrealistic goals for a lot of dancers who might not yet be at that point of feeling fully free around their food choices. But during this honeymoon phase, when you have started to reintroduce those foods that have previously been deemed to be off limits or unhealthy or, and I quote, not clean enough for your standards, a heightened reward response ensues. This is a direct result of the deprivation stage from when you were restricting those foods. So more than ever, your cravings skyrocket. You essentially want to make up for lost time. And if this is coupled with coming from a period of caloric restriction, then that reward response is going to be even higher. Even the research demonstrates that imposing restraints around our eating drives those cravings and ultimately leads us to experiences like, and I quote, overeating or binge eating, or just feeling very out of control around food. And for most dancers, this experience can surface into two scary realities. The first is the radical acceptance of eating foods that you or someone else has previously deemed to be off limits, very often a product of those clean eating regimens. And the second scary reality for a lot of dancers is the potential to overeat or eat past the point of comfort. And depending on how long you've restricted these foods, this phase in your journey of rebuilding your relationship with food can linger. And for many dancers, it's often the reason why we see them revert back to restrictive eating patterns. But instead, I want you to utilize these experiences as pieces of evidence in how you can better identify ways to keep moving forward in rebuilding your relationship with food. That often means making sure that your body is sufficiently fueled with adequate meals and snacks, a very proactive approach to ensure nutritional adequacy. And the last reason why many dancers struggle to sustain the behavioral changes associated with the healthy dancer is because of a culture inundated with those messages. Unfortunately, dancer diet culture, it's super loud and it's super present in our studios. Whether it's a relentless pursuit to achieve a specific body ideal or idealistic way of eating, dancers can often be drawn to those harmful practices like extreme dieting and overtraining. Dancers who are specifically training environments that might be pretty toxic and breeding a lot of competition between their dancers, we often see this challenge exacerbate. Overcoming these obstacles is paramount, especially in your efforts to continuously rebuilding a supportive relationship with food, a healthy body image, and overall continuously redefining the healthy dancer. And there are a few simple facts that we can uncover as you move along your journey that will help the process. The first is just that. This is a journey. It's not meant to be something that anyone achieves overnight. And inevitably, that journey is going to be filled with experiences that feel great and other experiences that don't feel so great. I always say, you might experience a time where you do feel out of control around eating a food, introducing back into your meal plan. But over time, those feelings are going to level out. That food that now feels so novel because you've now reintroduced it, you've now provided yourself with that permission, more exposure to that food is going to help to decrease or alleviate the novelty around it. There's also going to be days where you feel more confident and days where you feel less confident, especially when a comparative mindset or self-doubt trickles in, whether it's around your eating or around how you're feeling in your body. I encourage you to consider these experiences, these ups and downs, as trials and errors. They're not wins, they're not failures, it's all trial and error. And that's the process, that's the journey. And that's why we are always working to redefine the healthy dancer. As you embrace the journey, you can also utilize these experiences in building those bits of evidence. For example, eating past physical comfort. This can often happen for two reasons, and starting to understand why can help you as you continue to move forward. So the first is biological, and it stems from that period of restriction. Your body is making up for a caloric deficit. Explore how you've eaten in the last week or two. Have you been able to eat several times a day, multiple meals and snacks regularly? And if you're dancing more, have you been able to get in that extra snack? The second is more psychologically. Are you still experiencing some restrictive thinking around your food choices? Those thoughts of, I shouldn't be eating this, or in order to eat this, I have to save up. Return to the process of identification. Identify those thoughts as being unhelpful. Can you start to identify patterns when that restrictive thinking surfaces? If you're continuing to label foods as being bad or good or clean or not clean, how can you start to build a more neutral lens into your food choices? Food neutrality is a topic that I dive into deeply within The Healthy Dancer, and I'll share a helpful link in the show notes so you can refresh your memory on it. Working with a registered dietitian nutritionist like myself can be incredibly helpful in this work of exploration, identifying whether your current meal plan is actually supporting you. Exploring techniques like mindfulness, mindful eating can also be helpful during your meal times. This can help you to slow down at meal times and get back into touch with body attunement, or your body's way to communicate feelings of fullness, satiety, and satisfaction both after meals and between meals. Another thing to remember as you are working to sustain the behavioral changes of the healthy dancer is to continuously fact check, especially because those messages of dancer diet culture are bound to trickle back in at some point for as long as you're in the industry. I often say, with self-discovery comes self-awareness. Remind yourself of why you want to heal your relationship with food. Maybe it's to experience more ease at meal times. Maybe it's to experience less stress in the studio and the ability to focus more on your steps rather than on your next meal. You can also remind yourself of some straight up statistics that nearly 98% of dieters regain their weight within the first year of losing it. And those who do keep that weight off are partaking in behaviors that most closely resemble those of an eating disorder. And on top of that, eating disorders have the second highest mortality rate of any mental health disorder. Finally, lean into compassionate curiosity throughout the entire journey. Keep an eye out for when those moments of the dieting mentality or restrictive food rules come up. They can be triggered by a multitude of reasons. And no matter where along the journey you are in rebuilding your relationship with food and redefining the healthy dancer, remember, recognize the progress that you've made thus far. Even just coming to terms with the fact that behavioral change can help is a huge amount of progress. I'm gonna go as far as to saying you listening to me, you reading my content tells me that you are interested in learning how to redefine what healthy means for you. Ideally, the goal for dancers is to stop relying on what can feel like very overwhelming or encompassing behaviors, like obsessing around their food choices, clean eating, counting calories, counting macros. All of these behaviors, in addition to the countless messages that we pick up from dancer diet culture, drive us further from our abilities to support our bodies from within, because we're relying heavily on the external cues, the external messages of what's telling us what we should and should not eat. Instead, I want to work with you so that you can feel less restricted by food and more supported by food. And in doing this, you also become more appreciative of your body, of its vast capabilities. And when the question comes up, because it does for a lot of dancers, about weight and weight changes and questions of a changing body, we can discuss these in a more productive way. Because in sustaining the work of behavioral change that supports the healthy dancer, many dancers fear what might happen to their bodies and how their bodies might look. Now, it's hard to predict, especially through just a generalized discussion. But for dancers who are coming from a very restrictive place with their food choices, it's possible that you are maintaining a weight that is too low for your body's optimal health. If you have gained weight in the process of rebuilding your relationship with food, then there might need to be some work done on building body confidence in this new, healthier body that you are in. Even when this might feel uncomfortable, explore ways in which you can gain comfort, usually with the help of a licensed mental health practitioner who can work with you to support cognitive restructuring around body ideals in ways that will help you at the very least build a more neutral lens in supporting and appreciating a body that allows you to function through this world optimally. A lot of these concepts are often more easier said than done. I recognize that. And if you are struggling, I encourage you to reach out. As a registered dietitian nutritionist, much of this work is what we do within my program, The Healthy Dancer. And I feel confident that rebuilding your relationship with food will help not just in your dancing, but also with how you move through your day-to-day. You can reach out. I'll share links in the show notes. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon.